G'day everyone, this episode is with Richard. Now, all the Married at First Sight episodes and all the podcasts out there focus about the drama and he said this and she said that, blah fucking blah. This is an episode about who they are. It's kind of like an enormous backstory, so you want to figure out who that actual person is and not all the drama subscribe bullshit. This episode's for you. Check it out. Richard is born in South Africa. He's worked in marketing for many years. And not to mention, he's just a fucking nice guy. I like him. Hopefully you enjoy the episode and enjoy. Oh, and of course, we absolutely do talk about MAFS. Richard, what is happening? How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you for penciling this in. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride just trying to get everything in synchronicity. But here we are. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Yep. Sitting here in my new apartment.
Yeah, I was wanting to ask you that. How long you been there now? About a week, if that?
A week and a few days. I moved Friday a week ago, and I did it's an interesting rental market at the moment. It's very competitive. There's a shortage of accommodation, and so you get out there on a Saturday morning looking at places. I live in the Potts Point area. Very high density, and you go and look at apartments. There's about 40 people there queuing up to look, and you go all queued to some little tiny apartment, and eventually you see one that you like, and then you apply, and then of course you get rejected because somebody else has made a higher offer, but you don't know, and the real estate agents can't tell you that because that's now illegal. Otherwise, it gets into auction bidding, and pushes the prices up. And there were a few places I missed out on, and I was like, oh, damn, and another Saturday, will I go again? But the place I liked, I saw them and liked the most, is the place I ended up getting. So, as I say, things happen for a reason, and this has worked out really, really well. I'm really happy here. It's great.
Did the real estate agents? Did the real estate agents figure out who you are? They spot you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, a few people did here and there, but I don't think the real estate agents did. Well, if they did, they didn't say anything. So, I'm not sure if that's a positive or a plus or minus. I don't know. I think they really care, just a numbers game.
Well, you've done something right to get it through because, yeah, like the news at the moment with all the landlords, they're all fucking villains or have a bloody bad reputation, aren't they, these days? Like, as I said, 100 people turning up now and 100 people turning up just to have an inspection.
That's right. There's
something like 5,000 millionaires immigrating to Australia every year, and they're just buying up property.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, there's a few issues, but I'm lucky. I was fortunate, and I'm in a place and living on my own for the first time in my life, really, actually.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I had your daughter or something with you. Or daughters.
Yeah, we lived together, and the plan was that she was going to move out this year. She's 25 now, so it's time that happened, and she moved in with her girlfriend Claude, and they moved into a place in sort of Marrickville area about a month ago, or maybe 5 weeks ago, and I moved in here. So Roxy and I had we had 2 cats, so we divided the cats. So I've got Ziggy here, and she's got Vixen, the other cat, in her place with her girlfriend's 2 cats. So they have 3 cats, and apparently it's all a bit fucking cat crazy down there, with cats fighting and not getting on and shitting everywhere, and oh my God. Anyway.
Well, for those who don't know who you are with me, joined on the last season Married at First Sight, and you hold the flag apparently for the most mature cast member of all time in MAFS history. But what I'd really love to be able to ask is precisely how did you move to Australia? Because when I remember first met you at the Bucks party, and I was like, I think you got a South African accent. So What happened? Like, can you tell me where you grew up?
I was actually born in the UK, which was very fortunate for me. But I didn't live there very long, but my parents were living there at the time. But they kind of grew up in South Africa, went to school in South Africa. So we're all South Africans from Cape Town. But I was born in the UK, went back to Cape Town when I was a baby, grew up in Cape Town during apartheid South Africa, which was a real interesting time. South Africa had this very open, discriminating against people of color policy, and the rest of the world didn't want a bar of South Africa. So it was quite interesting growing up there because we were very cut off and isolated from the world. I mean, for example, I had never seen a rock concert until I left South Africa. You know what I mean? Nobody toured, nobody came. People just didn't come. Everybody boycotted South Africa. And so I grew up in that world, and having a South African passport was not a good thing. So if you wanted to leave South Africa with a South African passport, that was really hard. But I had a British passport because I was born in London. So when I finished university, I just left, and I was always going to leave. I was always going to leave. But my first stop was the UK, and I wanted to work, and I did. I worked in advertising. And the UK, advertising in the UK, that was the place to be. It was the sort of mecca. The best work was being done there. The greatest agencies were there. And I went to London. I was actually a tour guide for a little bit in London.
No way! I didn't know that.
I did the walking tours. I did the Inns of Court. I did Parliament House. I did Jack the Ripper. I did Covent Garden, Theatreland, and I'd stand there and meet people at the tube, and they'd put a couple of pounds in a little bag, and I'd give them the 90-minute tour. Yeah.
They still happen now. I got friends that do that now in their off time periods between multi-day tours around Europe.
Yeah.
It's fucking hard.
It was better than working in a pub or something, I thought anyway. But actually the company that hired me, so I said, okay, so what's the walk? And they said, oh, that's for you to work out. I've got all these books, planned all my routes and learned the history. And that's what I did. But I applied to all these agencies to get a job. And I ended up getting a job at Saatchi & Saatchi, which was the best agency at the time to work for, not just in London, but actually in the world. And we had all Charles Saatchi's art hanging up in the agency, the walls around us. And some of it was really horrible. We used to always complain about this stupid shit modern art that's hanging in the office walls. And after 2 years of London life, I was like, yeah, man, I just can't. I'm a beach, Benny, I'm a beach kind of culture guy. I grew up in Cape Town, the rocks, the sand, the surf. That's what I need, and London was just too depressing for me. And it really got to me, and my mood wasn't good.
How long were you there in London in total before you were starting to think, right, time to move on?
2 years. 2 years. But I applied for residency in Australia 1 year in. So I'd been there for 1 year. And so it was about the beginning of 87. I then applied to be a resident in Australia. And Australia came up because, where do I go? I'm not going back to South Africa. I speak English. I'm thinking Southern Hemisphere. I'd watched Crocodile Dundee. That had just come out. I really liked Paul Hogan. I thought he was a very funny guy. And I liked the whole Aussie brand and that whole vibe. Yeah. And that was very attractive to me. And I applied, and it took, I think I didn't hear anything for about 7 or 8 months. And then I just got a letter literally in the mail saying, you've got residency in Australia. I was like, yes!
Residency.
Yeah, residency.
Straight up.
I got points. I got enough points. You have to have points. Under a certain age, I had a degree, certain criteria that you have to have. And if you got over 100 points or whatever, it was the system, and I got in. Yeah. So
that's how the times have changed. Like my girlfriend's in the process, or we're in the process of going through a partnership visa, but we've looked at the point system currently to immigrate. Fuck me, it is so hard and so expensive. It's like a business almost designed to fail. Like the application process now is like just money coming in, and you may or may not get over the line, but you just applied sort of willy-nilly, and probably that British passport would have been a massive bonus at the time, hey?
Yeah, probably a massive bonus as well. But I had to, so I was with my then girlfriend who became my wife, but I needed to take up my residency and arrive in Australia as a single guy. So I couldn't get married. I mean, we couldn't get married before we moved to Australia. If we had, then I would have had to have reapplied, because suddenly that changed my point status. You know what I mean? So we arrived here in December 87 and then got married in March 88 in South Africa, like pretty soon afterwards. And in fact, she got her citizenship for the first time just the other month.
Is she an Aussie? Well, what was her background? From South Africa too?
South Africa. No, I met her in South Africa at a bar.
Yeah.
I was part of my crowd in South Africa. Yeah.
So she went over to London with you?
She went to London with me, but she wasn't. I was working and sort of grinding it out there. She went to London, then went to Europe with a friend for holidays and beaches, and then went back to London, and then came back here. And she's worked in London for a little bit, for about 7 or 8 months at a public relations agency. That was the point at which we were kind of getting serious, and that's when we applied to come to Australia and all that. Yeah.
Wow. Was it, I'm guessing Southern Hemisphere, Cape Town, similar weather to that of Australia? Was that one of the reasons why I thought, fuck the UK, it's too cold, too miserable? Yep. Jumped in like the tube, like packed in like sardines.
100%. I was on the black line. It was the worst fucking line of all. I remember going to Brighton, because I was like, okay, well, there's going to be a beach there.
Yeah.
It's just rocks. And it's like, yeah, all right. I didn't have money because it was my first job ever. And I was a graduate trainee. That's how Saatchi's hired me. I was earning £8,200 a year.
Hey.
And I couldn't just fly to Europe or fly to Greece for a weekend and get sun and beach. I was trapped in London. I couldn't go anywhere, So living in London like that with no money is a very tough experience. Yeah. The work side of it was amazing, was absolutely amazing, to be honest with you, and that experience.
Yeah.
And when I came to work and I worked in advertising in Australia, it was never as good as the experience I had in London at Saatchi. I have to say that, it was just amazing. So from a career point of view, and from that satisfaction work, I probably should have stayed in London. I would have got a lot more satisfaction than that, but I couldn't hack it. I couldn't.
Like many other Aussies. When I first time I moved to London, I actually lived with South Africans. First 2007, and it's funny because so many South Africans will move to the UK thinking it's a better quality, like less sort of crime, post sort of apartheid. But all the Aussies move there thinking, fuck, I'm gonna head back eventually. Like the quality of life here, you just can't argue with it when you look at overall like traveling around. But did you meet many Aussies in London? Because you got like the big walkabout pubs where there's shitloads based there?
No, not really. I didn't really know where the Aussies were hanging out and all that, to be honest. No, I actually hung out more with South Africans, to be honest.
Yeah.
Massive South African community there. So yeah, I kind of hung out with them. And then, English people, through work and stuff like that. I didn't really meet any Aussies, no.
Didn't make it to the walkabout pubs?
No, what? What's that?
Yeah, well, when I was there, like, there's a chain of pubs all through the UK called the Walkabout, and there was this flagship one which I think's closed, but it was huge when I was there, and apparently it was massive in the 80s and 90s. So maybe these started to open up just before you left, but they mostly congregated. But Aussies, Kiwis, and South Africans all rugby, all Antipodeans got together and just got fucked up partying real hard. Zimbabweans got in there as well. They sort of snuck through in this little community.
I was there 86, 87. It was quite a long time ago, so probably not.
Yeah.
But certainly, and with the Zimbabweans, my grandparents actually lived in Zimbabwe. There you go. That was my father's family home when he was a kid. Then it was called Rhodesia. So we have that connection as well. Yeah.
All right, got to ask this.
Guys from Zim.
There was another one called The Church. Did you ever hear about that one?
No.
Same again. South Africans started to get. This must have just started sparking up when you just left. But long story short, like everyone in the UK was going to church on a Sunday, but Aussies typically didn't. South Africans a lot didn't, and Zimbabweans didn't. So they all started this. It started in a person's backyard where they had entertainment with like strippers and all sorts of weird shit. And it just sort of expanded to like a proper organized thing where thousands of people go to a venue and just start day drinking for 10 a.m. But there was that core Aussies, South Africans, Kiwis all getting together, just ripping in. Glory days.
I sort of started experiencing a little bit in 1987, the kind of dancing club scene a bit, which hit England in a massive way. They weren't in clubs, they were in like warehouses, they sort of announced in the morning where the venue was, and they were almost like illegal things. And at that stage there was a new a new party drug that had hit the scene, and it was called ecstasy. And it was arriving in bucket loads from Amsterdam. And so the deal was you went to the party and you got your ecstasy, and it was just fantastic. You know what I mean? So that was kind of my real social experience. Yeah, not the walkabout pubs and places like that.
Oh man,
No.
you've seen the better side. I must have went all the dingy places when I was there for a period. All right, so what happened? So from there,
So just on that, my brother moved
yeah.
to London after I'd left there, and he's been living there for 30 years now. So it's home to him. And so I go there quite a lot, you know, have been over the years to visit and things like that. So it's sort of a place that I go and visit and see. And my son lived there for 5 years with his wife as well, but they moved back to Australia a couple of years ago. So there's quite strong connections and ties there. Yeah.
I feel you. Yeah, I got a British passport too, and yeah, I've been back and forth 7 times, and I was hopefully going to go this year. Now I'm especially with a German, and they're right next door to each other, so
So
hopefully going to go back there for another visit. We're in the plans for that. But speaking of planning, you went to London to Sydney. When did you arrive in Australia?
in December 87, just before the bicentennial.
Which
So
is
the
very specific. Do you
bicentennial
remember
was
the day?
1988. Yeah, 1988. It was 200 years old or
Yeah,
young was
yeah.
the country, and it was massive. You know, it was the whole thing that went off. And so I arrived on the coattails of that. And yeah, it was really exciting, actually, really exciting.
And then you got straight into advertising?
Well, yeah, it took me a few months to get a job, actually, to be honest. I thought I'd get a job much easier and quicker, given I'd be working for the best agency in the world. But anyway, I've actually got a job at Ogilvy and Mather, advertising here in Australia, and then did that for a while. And then, you know, I kind of love-hate relationship with advertising, to be honest. I actually left advertising after a few years, went back to uni, and I did a master's in English literature and philosophy. And then because I was unemployed, I was offered a job to run an agency, a small agency in Thailand, in Bangkok. So whoop, off I went to Bangkok for 2 years. And my wife joined me. In fact, she was pregnant and my son was born there in Bangkok.
No way.
And then I came back to Australia and was offered another big advertising job. And I was like, yeah, yeah. Ended up starting my own agency, which I ran for about 4 years, 4 or 5 years, and then went back and worked for some of the big multinationals again until I was about 40, early 40s, and advertising had provided, you know, very good quality of life and standard of living for me in an environment that was really fun and relaxed and young and you know and it was kind of, you know, very tolerable. But I just thought, you know, if I was actually in a meeting. It was a Coke meeting, and Coca-Cola it was the whole Coke Zero, Diet Coke, normal Coke, and grow, and share of mouth. And I was like, you know, I don't give a fuck if I sell more cans of Coca-Cola. I really don't, you know? And so what am I going to do? So I sort of flipped the way that I do branding. So if you do branding and you work in advertising, you make ads, obviously. But I brand companies now, and it's not about making ads. It's a leadership conversation. It starts with the CEO, the executive team, and the conversation is, what is this company about? Who are you? What's your purpose apart from making money? What's your contribution to the world, to people who work for you? And so in that way, what I'm doing is I'm trying to make the workplace and companies a place where people can feel excited to be at and more engaged at work. And so that's the way I brand. And of course, it leads to marketing sometimes, and that's great and that's fine, but it starts on the inside. Do you walk your talk, and who are you? What are you about? And so that's how I brand companies now. And I started doing that, you know, 20 years ago, and everyone was like, yeah, right, like, good luck with that. And I just did it. I had this fat advertising job, you know, the big bucks. You know, I went to, you know, global meetings in Shanghai and fucking Hong Kong, and I went to Seattle to visit Microsoft, you know, all that stuff, you know, and I had 3 kids in private schools, the big mortgage, and I just said, no, nah, thank you very much, I'm done, I'm going to do my own thing, I can't do this anymore. And everyone said to me, are you fucking crazy? What are you doing, Richard? That's kind of the story of my life. People have always said that to me, and I somehow just survived. I got through it and made enough money and did what I had to do, just working for myself. But
I
it
love
was a
that.
massive risk. But it was a
You,
risk I had to take because it
yeah.
wasn't just I felt like my soul was on the line. I felt like advertising and the whole world. There was actually my little candle, my little flame was actually getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and it wasn't good for me. And I just had to break that and get out of it, and that's what I did. So yeah.
There's so
And
much
then I
to
went down
unpack right there. Like, just I love your mindset and I love your storytelling where you just go and just pop to Bangkok for 2 years and just spit. Like, for some people, that's like they could immerse themselves for hours on that topic. And you're like, yeah, just pop there for a couple of hours, like a couple of years and pop back.
that's right, that's
Uh,
right.
but I love your interpretation of your motivation with business. So by the sounds of it, like if you don't buy or subscribe into the business, you're out. Coca-Cola is about consuming bloody sugar drinks, so you just didn't buy into the product. Whereas, like, you
Yeah,
need to find a company that, or when you work with a company, you need to figure out like what their why is. What's their
yeah, exactly.
precise purpose.
Exactly right. It's purpose driven and what their why is. And the impact of that on the people who work for the company is huge and massive. So Gallup do an engagement study on engagement in the workplace. And in their last study they did, Australian engagement, employee engagement, according to Gallup, is 21%. So that means 80% of people, or 79%, are not actively engaged at work, and they're dragging their sorry asses to the office just because they need to pay their Telstra bill and their rent. Now, if that's your existence and that's your life, there's got to be more to it than that. And my belief is that people want to be engaged at work. People want to do amazing things. They want to work for a company they can feel proud of and they can talk proudly about. And so when I come into brand organizations, I do it that way. That's what I've got in mind.
Okay.
But it's what's at the top. It's a leadership thing.
One thing I love chatting with you about, I think you got some excellent perspectives with life. And most of the listeners to this podcast is mostly female and actually in their 20s. So
Yep.
any of those that are, say, young professionals that would go out to the workforce and they're a bit deflated, is there some type of advice that you could give them or give perhaps their manager to make it a more harmonious, so they're not working in there going, fuck, I'm just grinding out the clock till 5 o'clock. They're about to wrap up.
Yep.
How do you flip the script on a business? How do you turn it
Well,
around?
they say that people don't leave companies, people leave managers. That's quite a famous saying. So it's very often the person you're reporting to and how they manage you. A lot of people become managers because they've been in a role for a certain length of time and then they just naturally get promoted to being a manager. It doesn't mean they're good managers. They might be very technical people and they've never really got no management skills at all. So that happens quite a lot. And that can be a problem. I would say to young people, the one thing is read The Alchemist. Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist.
Oh, that has been on my
Read,
radar for fucking years.
read The Alchemist because your truth and where your treasure is and where your truth is, that's where your heart is, and that's where you need to be working, and that's where you need to go. And you need to find a place like that, a place where you're accepted and validated for who you are, and you have the opportunity to to flourish and grow and be yourself as well. So it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural fit, and I think I think I mean that's. But read The Alchemist. That's the book. That's the book for young people to read. It's very, very inspiring, and you want to align yourself with that. Otherwise you spend your whole life in a job you don't love, doing things you don't love just to pay your bills. That is not a way to spend your life. It's not. And the work I do, while my work has been sporadic and up and down, and it's not I don't know where my next paycheck's going to be. Well, I don't know any of that. My work is fulfills me and meets my needs. And my work is not something that's separate from me. My work is an expression of who I am. That's why I will always work, because if I don't do it, then there's a whole part of me that's not being expressed. And so I don't have work-life balance and things like that. It's all just me. And so I really align the work that I do, which is the branding, and of course I do motivational speaking as well, around what I enjoy doing and what I get fulfillment and reward out of. And ultimately, it's about making a contribution to people's lives.
How did you transition? Because I would imagine, I've never worked in advertising marketing, but I've read a lot of books that surrounds that space and maybe
Yeah.
practiced it in my own right. I mean, say, for example, on this podcast, but how did you transition from being in branding to motivational speaking?
Oh, because so what happened was when you work in advertising, there's they have the pitch, the big pitch, yeah, where you spend $100,000 pitching for, let's say, the Microsoft account, yeah, and a lot of effort and time goes into it, and there's 4 or 5 agencies pitching, and I would lead the pitches as the head of strategy. I would lead the pitch presentation, and with a compelling, you know what I mean. Here's the thing, here's our case, this is our thinking, this is why, and here's the idea, and boom, 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 yeah? And I was really good at that. So, and I really loved doing it. So I was a good presenter, and there was a bit of theater with it and all that. I was like, okay, cool, that's really good, At the same time, I'm working on my own life and my own personal journey, discovering things, learning, growing. And for a long time, I thought that the issues I had were just me issues. And I was a bit of a fuck up, to be honest. And then I started to realize that, in fact, the issues and the challenges and the things that I have in my life, this is the human condition. It's not me, it's the human condition. So I became very interested in the human condition as someone who studied philosophy as well. And I got into psychology, kind of layman stuff, but the positive psychology, Martin Seligman and all of that, And positive psychology was just like, whoa, a huge game changer for me in thinking about that. And then that led me to putting on talks and workshops that are kind of helping people, unleash their full potential and live the lives that they want to be living. And I started doing it, for free. Obviously you just do it. You do it in-house, for staff, then for some clients. And then eventually I get a paid gig here, and then I get a paid gig there. And so it's been about 20 years now, all up, that I've been doing it. And the content I actually wrote a book in 2007 called Wake Up Tiger. And that consolidated all my thinking and thoughts into one place. So that was quite important. And then I had the Wake Up Tiger thing, and I don't do that anymore, but I call it Real You. That's what I call it now. And it's evolved and developed, and I know what has an impact on audiences and what doesn't. And so it gets better and better, hopefully. I did one the other day and it went really well, and it was a great response, and yada, yada. And so it's that. That's how I got into that. That's how I got into it. I love doing it. I'm pretty good at it. And I'm an ideas person as well. And I'm also very, I've always talked very openly about my issues and about my stuff. When I was diagnosed with depression, when I was about 30 years old, I was very honest and talked about that openly to people. And that was at a time when no one talked about those things, because, if you were working for a company and you said you had depression, that was a career limiting move back in 1990, Whereas I talked about it. And people said, why, like people close to me said, well, why do you talk about this? And I go, because there's other people that also have it as well. And it needs to be normalized. It needs to be talked about and put out there. So I've always been like that, in that way. And so that fitted also naturally into a lot of my talks and my subject matter and stuff. But I also talk on branding, I talk on creativity, I talk on culture, I talk on change, the usual business things. But the thing I love is the whole real motivational thing, which is real you. Yeah.
Do you mind sharing what you went through in your 30s?
Well, I went through, dude. It's what got me to 30. I mean, it was like my life. I grew up in South Africa. I felt trapped in many, many ways. I was sent to boarding school at a very young age for 2 years. In fact, 2.5 years I spent in boarding school. That was like an institution that was just the most horrible experience of my life. And I was this tiny kid and didn't understand. I did national service. I spent 2.5 years in the army, in the South African Defence Force, in the infantry, mechanized infantry. That was pretty full on, and was indoctrinated and, copped all that. Then when I was at university, Mandela was in jail, and we were all protesting for his freedom and all that. Then eventually I left. Yeah.
So all this fueled into that depression?
Yeah. So all that. So I left and I fled. But what fell into the depression was, So there was a heavy drinking culture, massive, okay, in South Africa, especially, and also especially in the army. Yeah. So I was a massive drinker as well. And then 30s came, and I had my first two kids were born, and I was like, I wasn't present for them in the way that I needed to be. And I had a thing where I used to count. I was always counting squares and things like that, compulsive counting. And in fact, it was my mother-in-law who said to me, you should go to the St. Vincent's Anxiety Disorder Clinic for your counting and be tested, just see what they find. So I went along and they tested me and they said, you have really bad depression. Okay. So I didn't know that because, as I said earlier on, I thought I was just a bit of a fuck up. And then I was like, oh, okay, wow. It was kind of a relief for me. And I went to group therapy with a whole lot of other people who had depression, but a lot of them were much worse than me. So that made me feel, okay, oh, good, all right. So I'm not that bad, There's sort of degrees of, it's a spectrum, yeah. I started taking medication, which is Prozac, which I still take today. 30, whatever, 3 years later, I still take one little Prozac tablet every single day of my life. It's a chemical balance thing. That's all it is, and that's what I take. I stopped drinking then for 10 years, completely. Now that was massive, for me as well, just to kind of get the right out of my system. And that's what I did to combat that and deal with that. And that's where it started, yeah. But since then, there's other stuff, Benny, we've all got trauma, I got trauma from those South African years and the family home and the growing up in the boarding school and the fucking army. And I've got trauma, stuff that we carry, And so I've been digging deep, and this trauma pops up and manifests itself every now and then in different strange ways. And my reaction sometimes to situations is very driven by that. And I think some of my reactions on MAFS was also driven by that as well. The trauma of being rejected. That's a massive, massive trauma for me. And I did a lot of work on that before I went on MAFS, actually. But there's still more work to be done, So it's an endless journey. It goes on and on and on, and here we go. And so that's, these are the things I like to talk about, and because I have a lived experience of this stuff, as do many people, but I just have a way of talking about them and getting at them that it helps a lot of people in the work that I do. So yeah, that's what that's all about, But life's been a struggle in that way, but that doesn't bother me because that's what makes a life worth living, and that's what makes life what it is. I think when I first came to Australia, everyone was like, oh, the lucky country, no worries, mate. It's like, nah, that's really not what life's about, It's like, come on, guys, It's not just about being lucky and having no worries. How do you develop and grow and through that? Whereas in South Africa, there was a constant struggle, going on. And I grew up in that world, And so I still have that in me, that struggle, that fight, that, to get somewhere. And it's never ending. It's never ending, And for me, the sort of journey destination is just to find, just inner peace and calmness and that, to be in that in my life, happy with myself, happy with the people that are in my life, and that kind of stillness and calmness and peace. That's my nirvana that I'm working towards. How close do you think I'm getting, Ben?
No, I think you painted a very detailed picture of something that's very hard to bloody communicate. I can resonate with what you're talking about because, like, for me, I've got this fucking fire within. Like, I need to do something. I need to accomplish something. I need to live. I need to grow, and it's just continuous. But it might. Sometimes I can go a bit too crazy with it, and the balance is off, and I find it's like a battle that I'll never win. But I think the trick for me is I put myself in a position from the furthest away from being lost, no matter what the outcome. I'm like, if I'm going down a negative path where I'm like, shit, falls into depression, say, but I can never win because, like, you can't always be so happy. It's finding this like happy, neutral, happy space to maintain that, continue moving and continue living, continue smiling. But the height of highs, you think, shit, well, I'm going to go back now. I'm going to be back at this position. And when you're down, or, and that's where depression can creep on in, I think. That's sort of my interpretation of it.
So that's why I have a yin yang tattooed on my back. because that is life. The good comes with the bad, and the love comes with the hate, and the rainy day comes with the sunny day, and that's what it is. And when you accept that, when you see that and realize that and accept that, when you have the bad days, it's okay, because it's just today and it has to happen. Bad days are part of a good life, man. And that's what I've learned. And that's why I have the yin yang. We live in a world where everybody wants to have good days and no one wants to have a bad day. And if they do, oh, life's fucked. No, it's not. That's life. That's the human condition.
I love it. Richard, we got a lot I really want to talk about. And because I'm a tight ass and this podcast is still running on $0 in investment, I've got the free subscription of Zoom. So if you wouldn't mind, I'll send you another link so we can continue the chat. Left. Yeah, I know. I've got 3 minutes left.
I do the same thing, mate. Don't worry about it. I do it to clients sometimes. And I say, oh, I'm so sorry. And they go, oh, we do it as well. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's like, why pay for it when you can just do this system for free?
Exactly.
1 second. I'll send you another link.
Okay. Ciao.
Thank you for your patience. Works out a bit of an unofficial toilet break, doesn't it? That's good. Well, might be able to utilize that break. And thank you for being able to share and unpack all that information. It is a lot to absorb. And I got a feeling, Richard, we could probably keep this podcast going for hours and hours and hours. You got so much good stories and information, in my opinion. But a lot of people have obviously seen you on MAFS, want to learn about MAFS. I know you've talked about it over and over and over. How do you feel? So we kind of steer away from that and make it a little bit different to the best of our possibility.
Regrets.
All right. But curious to know, because you've had this epic life of adventure, of fun, everything is sort of unpacked. So why'd you apply?
No, my wife and I separated. We got divorced 7 years ago. I had a girlfriend for about 4 years, and I'd been single for 2.5 years. Okay, during COVID, obviously was part of it. And then I was like coming out of COVID. I'm like, end of 2022. It's like, okay, I need to find someone that I can have in my life. And what do? I'm not going out, I'm not going to bars and clubs and shit. I'm an older guy. What do? How do I meet people? It's got to be the dating apps, yeah? So I went on all the apps. Like if I do something, I do it. I was probably on about 6 apps, getting out there, meeting people with different expectations. Initially, I had quite high expectations, and then I kind of lowered them and said, okay, it's just a numbers game. You've got to meet people and meet people. And I just wasn't meeting the right people. I wasn't meeting people that I connected with, that I vibe with. It was not this, we weren't on the same wavelength. And it started to get to me. I started to feel like this is me, I'm the common denominator in all of this. I'm a bit of a fuck up, we've said that before. This is the theme in my life, where I kind of think I'm the fuck up always, And I was sitting watching MAFS with my daughter, Roxy, because we were living together. And Roxy and I have watched MAFS every single season. It's that sort of it's a father-daughter thing that we've always bonded over it and laughed about it and shared stories about it and kind of learned a little bit about human behavior, what's acceptable, what's not. When she's 14, 15, 16, it's quite an interesting conversation point to talk about how people behave in relationships and things, as a kind of an educational thing as well. And we always watch it. So we were watching it in 2023, in like March. And I said to her, these people on MAFS and dating and bloody dating apps and yada, yada, yada. And Roxy was like, so why don't you just apply for MAFS, Dad? And I was like, oh, Roxy, don't be stupid, man. Like, really? She goes, yeah, apply. They'll love you, man. Just fucking apply. You never know. So it was kind of a joke that she said. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. So it took like, 45 minutes to fill in the form and make a little short video, and you submit it. I wasn't scouted. I wasn't hunted by anybody. I didn't apply the year before or 5 years ago. I applied literally in March. I forgot about it. And about 6 weeks later, the phone started ringing. And all of a sudden, I'm meeting Alessandra on a Zoom call in Puerto Rico. And then I'm meeting the executive producers, in an office here in Sydney. And then they're asking me, what's the size of your wedding finger? I'm like, this is looking like it's going to happen. And I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. Oh, damn. Now I've got to get my head around this. Like, okay, am I really ready for this? Is this something I'm actually going to do? And then when I got the call from one of the executive producers, it actually was Molly, and said, you're on. And I was like, yeah, right. Just give me a day. And in fact, I don't think, well, what can you say? You got to go, yeah. You can't say no.
Yeah.
I mean, how many thousands of people apply? And if the universe has conspired to have you, the one that's chosen to be on the show, go for it, So off I went. And, there was a lot of people in my life who were not supportive of that, to be honest, But it's my life, and I'm not going to say no because then I'll literally die wondering. I mean, you've got to go for it. So that's how it came about. I just went through the good old process. No shortcuts, nothing else. Just applied, filled in the form.
You did well. Yeah. You had a bit of a different. I never met the executive producers. I had Zoom chats with them like 2 years before, so I actually jumped a few steps when I ended up making it. So you ended up a speedier process to me. It's funny, hey?
Yeah.
Always makes you wonder. What was your intro video? What? You must have done something to stand out. Like, fuck, we want Richard.
The intro video was a minute long, and I basically said to them, I've watched MAFS with my daughter every single season. Do you guys have the courage to have somebody over 60 on the show? Do you have the courage and the balls to actually open up your show to older people who are also looking for love in their lives as well? It's not just young people out there. And if you do, give me a call. So that was kind of my challenge to them. And I played I'm the older guy card, 100%. And of course, they played it as well.
Yeah.
And they played it as well. I mean, it's obvious. Who's Richard? Oldest ever groom or MAFS. Okay, fine. Like that's it. That's what I mean, that's my tag, until they get somebody else who's older than 62, and that probably won't happen for a while.
It's an edge. It's a good edge. You leaned into it. You owned it. Hey, and of what? Tens of thousands of people, of applicants, or whatever the database is. I've heard it's over fucking 50,000 because they accumulate. I might have been a part of that because I applied 3 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, so they sort of, I think it's like 10,000 people apply, and they've got.
There's a backlog. I think Andy applied the year before, who they then chose to be on the show. So she didn't apply when I did. She applied earlier.
Yeah.
So there's this backlog of people that they look through as well. So yeah, there's thousands.
Hey,
you know what I mean? So yeah.
How you been finding it when people spot you in the street?
People in the street who come up to me and who spot me and come up to me are fantastic. They're excited to see me. They're like, oh my God, it's you, Like I'll tell you the other day I've just moved into my new apartment block, and I get in the lift, there's a guy in the lift, and I walk in the lift and I'm staying there, and the guy looks at me and goes, it's you. He was like completely shocked. And I was like, yeah, it's me. He goes, oh my God, I didn't know you lived here. And they were so, and their families that approached me. There was a lady who, on Anzac Day, they were in Sydney cruising around, and all their daughters, and they wanted a whole photograph. And, it's just, there's a lot of negative, toxic stuff about the show and in the show. But if my presence on the street can bring a smile to people's faces and make them kind of excited and happy, and they want a selfie and all that, then that's great. Like, and they're all like, oh, do you mind? I'm like, of course, it's fine. Of course I don't mind. I mean, what the hell, I'm here to make your day if I can, So the response has been fantastic. Really, really good.
Has there been anyone that's done anything negative? Either, I mean, online's a whole bloody different story, but anything in person?
Not face to face, nothing. Not a thing.
Yeah.
But online, oh yeah, online, of course.
I
just block them all now. I just block them. Anybody that should comment, I'm like, yeah, fuck you, you gone. Boing. Like, what? Like, why do you want to follow me and be on my Instagram or something, and then make shit comments about me? It's like, I mean, do you go like stupid or what? Like, laters. I just don't, there's the lovers and there's the haters. I've talked about that, and I'm not interested in the haters. There will always be haters. That's life.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who did the show, a lot of us cop backed, and yeah, fuck them, don't worry about that. Just go with the good stuff. And that's the way I'm rolling now. But it wasn't always like that, Ben. I mean, you know that. When people out there really saying shit things about you, it gets to your head, it gets under your skin. Talking about mental health and all that, and depression and anxiety. I went through a real bad patch when the show went to air. So end of January, February, March, I wasn't loving everything I was seeing about myself, to be honest, on the show. I was super self-critical. My self-belief was like really low. My self-love was just about non-existent. And there was a period where I was hardly going out at all. I wasn't walking even on the streets. I was just almost hiding in a way, and then I went out, and then people affirm you, they see you, they validate you, people approach you, people call you, people, different ways. And then they go, oh my God, you're a really great human being. And you kind of go, oh, okay. And slowly but surely,
I feel you.
It built me up again.
Fuck you. Oh, totally. I know exactly that feeling because, I mean, obviously, yeah, I had the world's best edit. Fuck. But, all my lowlights made it. None of my highlights made it. I got to accept that. I fucked and did some stupid shit on the show. But watching that was like, man, none of my highlights made it. None of my Voxies made it. So that was hard for me to digest. But nothing about me. But I know that feeling when you're out and you think, fuck, like, I just watched an episode of me last night, like, shit, that was embarrassing. And then you got to go, supermarket, and you think, fuck, did they just watch the show? Is that what's ticking on in their mind at the moment? And it's hard. Like, I just pushed through it. Yeah. I was lucky I had great friends and family that's known me and seen the whole version of me, and they just reassured me that love and support is like, mate, that's, we love you. We've got you, we helped you. And that was the biggest thing. Like, my girlfriend really helped me in that regard. I was pretty grounded because she was able to see the forest through the trees through the show and see the whole picture, to her credit. And that was very grounding for me. And, it's sort of not someone's fault if they can judge you based on a fraction of information. So when I just think, okay, well, they don't know what they don't know is what it is. So that's how I was able to get through it. But it's fucking hard, It's the biggest show in Australia. Everyone at least chatted about, at least heard of it, and you think, fuck, like that is quite tough. But you just soldier on. Tomorrow's another day. The sun's going to rise. Things will change, evolve, and
it's not just what's aired on the TV show. It's all the commentary that goes around it. The social media and the podcasts and all the other stuff that fans the flames of what you did. Those 30 seconds then becomes social media and media content for 6 weeks. It's like, God, you guys still writing about that same fucking thing with ranked Andy third. It's like, come on, guys, time to move on. Like, really, I've owned it. I fell on my sword. Like, okay, it was really cringeworthy. I get it. Like, yeah. But no, I'm being called Jeffrey Epstein. I'm being called Harvey Weinstein. I'm being called Prince Andrew. It's like, because that's an easy label to put on me. Older sleazy guy. Look at him. Yeah, right. It's like, oh, really? Is that who you think I am? Well, fuck you, because I'm so not that. I might seem that because I'm out of a party guy, but I've been living respectfully with my daughter and her girlfriend for 4.5 years in a house. It's not exactly a den of iniquity where I'm, picking up young girls and stuff, It's so far from the truth. Anyway,
but it does. That's the thing. Like, if
really got to me.
I think, like, human psychology, like, if you get told a lie repetitiously, you start to believe it. I think, like, mass media can work in the same. It's like propaganda. So if you're reading that same comment about you every day, turns into every week, turns into every month, you'll believe that lie about yourself.
That's right.
So fucking don't pay attention.
One drop of water is one drop of water, okay? And then there's another drop of water, and then there's another drop, and there's another drop. And before you know it, it's a fucking puddle. And before you know it, it's a fucking bath. And then it's a fucking lake. And then it's an ocean. You know what I mean? And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's just a thought. It's just something that was said and put out there, and it sort of catches on and catches on. And suddenly you find yourself, I'm sitting in this huge dam you know, of the I'm this guy, and it's just like, yeah, damn, you know. So
That,
yeah, it's very, very tough. It's
well, it's
real
about
mental
being, I think, it's about being
challenge to be
conscious
on
of
that.
that thought exactly you're talking about. So as soon as you spot that little drop and it turns into a puddle, you're like, hang on, there's a puddle. I need to be
That's right.
conscious of this thought. What is
Yep,
this?
that's right.
Is this the
That's
truth? Can
right.
I change it? Is this within my power to do so? And so it just fucking turns into a stream and fucks off.
You have the power to respond to that in the way that you respond to it. You can't change it. People will say what they're going to say and do what they're going to do and all that, but it's how you respond to things.
Mm.
And I wasn't always respond. It's very hard though. It's very, very hard, you know, to respond. To kind of like, yeah, it's water for ducks back, you know. And also what makes it hard is, you know, I got older kids, you know, like I don't want them to be ashamed of me, you know, and embarrassed of me. You know, they got to work, and all their colleagues at work watch it, and you know, it's like, so all that's really quite a big deal for me actually, and I think that's kind of what one of the things that really kind of got to me was, you know, I hope they're okay. But Roxy, my daughter who I live with, she at the end of the show when all was wrapped up and done, she was like, Dad, you were great, okay. And all the people I've spoken to, everyone says, you know, everyone has their bad moments, Ben. I mean, you know that. There wasn't one person who didn't have a shitty, weird moment on the show. Everybody did, you know. And it's like, oh, you know, which you'd like to kind of redo if you could. Everybody has that. And I think, and overall, I came out okay, you know, but like, yeah, yeah. Fucking hell. I remember the day that when you left, I remember that, you know, you were in such a bad space that you really copped it on that commitment ceremony couch. You got an absolute blasting and you were like shell shocked. I could see you. I was sitting opposite you in the room and I was just like, yeah, right. Like, and I was so fucking concerned. And I think I told you this before I spoke to some of the producers and said, like, is someone like going to be following up with Ben? Because they go, no, we've got it, we've got it. I was like, okay. Okay, he seems really shaken and shook, you know, and I think he went and hung out with your parents for a bit to kind of
Yeah.
just to ground himself again. Yeah,
Yeah, I did.
yeah.
I felt like that went for over an hour when I was just copping it on the couch. I don't know how long it went, but I just come in. I just felt like
It
it was going
wasn't.
on and
No, it was
on
an
and
hour.
on and
It
on
was an
and
hour. It
on.
was at least an hour.
Yeah,
Yeah,
on the same point. Because I don't really care what the comments say. At the time, I respected what the producers were saying, and I subscribed to them being experts. And then, as you know, you start to hear microphones in the ear and you think, who's telling them what to do? So when I started to acknowledge that, because the feedback they gave me, I took that as quite genuine.
yeah.
But when I actually left the show, yeah, hung out with my parents for like a week. Um, and then, yeah, I ended up seeking sort of independent psychology help and just unpacked as much as I could recollect from the show and just to figure out what's true. Some of it was true, some of it was inflated shit for the show, and try to decipher I need to work on this. That was just bullshit. And that when I realized, fuck, it was just a TV show. Like, you know, I got out of that was hard. And then when I just come down to earth, I'm like, fuck, that's an experience, you know, and I feel great now. And I've healed, and that was trauma. You know, I went through
Yeah.
some therapy which deals with trauma. I was like, fuck me, what a workplace to be a part of. That trauma is part
That,
of. I didn't know I
that
was
was
signing up for
traumatic for
that.
you. Yeah, I could see that was trauma for you. You were
Yeah,
traumatized. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you
like
didn't cope with the pressure and all that, you know, when the
yeah,
pressure was on, and then you said did some silly things as yeah, it's a pressure environment, and I really think you know, and that does happen, and people deal with things differently. But when that happens, and you slip up in that way, they fucking go you, you know.
yeah.
It's like right because that's what brings in the ratings, and
It's
that's what everyone
discovered.
wants
It's like,
and
oh,
it's
that's his Achilles heel.
and,
Yeah.
all that. So yeah, right, you know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I remember when it was all done and dusted, I remember you came up and you gave me a hug.
Yeah,
Fuck, I still remember that. I was like, fuck,
yeah.
like someone
Getting in the
understands
lift.
it.
Yeah, just before you went in the lift. Yeah, I
Yeah, that
remember
was
that.
done. Sort of packing my bags and heading home the next day. And yeah, like the next day, yeah, I went to my parents' house. I'm like, fuck, you've lost weight. And I was like, that's what stress does. I was
Yeah,
eating shit food on the show and I still lost weight. It's
I lost
just,
4 kilos. I lost 4 kilos, and I was also eating shit food, fucking
yeah.
snakes and stuff. It
Yeah,
lasts a
yeah.
lot.
The unlimited supply of Kit Kats and snakes.
It's like, yeah, right.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
was a number of times, because I've got such a sweet tooth, and the APs, they knew I was having a rough night. Yeah, there would always be packets of lollies, and yeah, and I'll just fucking 3, 4 in the whatever, 5 in the morning when we're getting back. Just, oh yeah, that's my breakfast. Ready to
Andy and I
film the
was the
next
same.
day.
We were eating all the fucking snakes and the lollies and all that. We were going crazy for that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to my
Yeah.
parents' house. They knew I was shook, but I remember waking up the next day. I was at my mum's house. Just didn't say anything. I just started crying. Just gave me. I've never hugged my
Oh,
father as much until that point. It just made me appreciate unconditional
yeah.
love. I
That's
never realized what it was until just that moment. Because yeah, like I had them back against the wall that whole time. But yeah, I really appreciate. I mean, a number of people helped me out on the show, but yeah, I still remember. Yeah, it was a moment for me
uh,
when you did that.
when I came off, and then the next night I went out for dinner with Roxy, my daughter, and my ex-girlfriend, and we sat down at the table, and I just burst into tears. They were like, "Yeah," I just burst into tears, and they were like, "Oh my God, are you all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I think so." Like, it's just so much. It's such a fucking, I'm just overwhelming. Just the whole experience, the whole thing. I was
Yeah.
just, yeah, I
It,
just cried. I think it was a cry of just glad to be out, glad it was done. But we
yeah.
still had the reunion week, which was coming up, and oh God, I was dreading that, man. That was
Me too.
hard. Is that hard for you going back to reunion week?
Yeah, like for me, um, like when I sort of recuperated post the show was still going for a number of weeks, and I realized where I went wrong. And I made a pact with myself before going on the show because through no fault of my own, I barely watch a show, and I don't subscribe to drama. I still don't. So if someone's fighting or calling people out, it's like go fuck off. I'm going to go
Yeah,
this
yeah, I'm the
direction,
same.
and
Right?
that's
Yeah,
how
we're
that's how I
both the
deal with
same. Like that.
that's how I deal with
Yeah,
conflict. Like I don't engage. I'm like, you go your way, I'll go mine. End of story. But I realized that was wrong. I realized I needed to defend myself or stand up for myself, and I always had that within me. I just chose not to be a part of it. I realized, okay, I'm not going to get ratings. I'm not going to get airtime. I'm comfortable with that because I want to stay true to my own values, and it's not engaging in shit. But my values started to shift. I realized I needed to stand up for myself a bit more. So then I realized, hang on, shit's going down. People were picking on me on the show. Fuck them. And that's why I had changed, and that's why I got made a little bit of airtime calling people out,
yeah,
and all.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
s- I ended up caving into drama. Now I know, but
Yeah,
it ended up getting a bit of a result for me. So I wish I gave a bit more of that in the past, and it possibly would have been a better outcome for me. But I accepted it. It's happens in the past. So, but that leads me on to my next question.
yeah.
I sort of might have answered my own for that one, but what would be my suggestion? Would be if someone's going to go on MAFS, I'd say you got to rip in. You got to be almost a bit of a cunt to go on the show or get the cunty out of you and engage in fights at dinner party. But that's my suggestion. What would be your biggest suggestion for the people going on MAFS for next season?
Well, first of all, I would say it's not for the faint-hearted. So if you feel that you might be faint-hearted, then don't do it. But my suggestion would be, I mean, for me, the big thing was just going with the flow. Don't fight it. Don't fight the producers. Don't fight the system. Don't fight the waiting around, the random texts at night saying you got to be ready at this time in the morning. Like they have control of your life and what you do and your time for 3 months. Just let them have it, and just go with it. And they know what they're doing, and you got to trust the process and go with that. If you fight that and resist that, and I think at the beginning quite a few people did, it makes it really, really hard and just unnecessarily even harder. So that's for me. Because personally, I don't like, I have a paper diary. And if your time or appointment isn't in my diary that I've written with my hand, we're not meeting, you know what I mean? So it's my time, it's my life, it's my day, it's my week.
Yeah.
So I gave that up for them completely. So that's the main bit of advice that I would give. Yeah.
I would second that because I was
Surrender.
one of the people
Surrender.
that didn't go with the flow as much as it. I needed
No, then you
to
didn't, you
step
fought
up a
the
bit better.
producers.
Yeah.
You had run-ins with producers, and that didn't do you any favors either. I
No.
didn't have any run-ins with any producers. I think I was quite low maintenance actually, and very obedient, which is very
Mm.
unlike me. But I just played the game, strung along. I'll just do what you want me to do and make it entertaining, and that's what I did.
For me, like I was happy to do whatever the producers wanted. I said, yep, no worries. What I struggled with is waiting around with nothing to do because I have very high levels of ADHD and I just go fucking nuts quickly. So the sticking the cameras on me when the camera, I was like, this is great and actually relaxed me sort of in that moment. But that waiting around time, I was going insane, and that part of me was the part if you can sit
That's
in a
right.
room and meditate or I play guitar, that got me through, but it got me they sort of bent the rules just for me too late. So the open wound was starting to gush out with my fucking going crazy, but they were giving me band-aids to it where I'm like, man. But anyway, and I know that I think they let some people go home, little ounces, but they never let me go home. So I just said, can I go to Newcastle
Yeah.
for a day? And they're like, nah. And I was like, fuck, bit of a double standard.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't
No,
know. I'll never
I
know.
think the waiting around is for what I was the point I was making just now about just surrender and go with it.
Mm,
The waiting around is probably the biggest thing. Just accept it and just be
yeah.
there. Because you're right, you're sitting in a tent for 3 hours, let's say, no phone, no nothing, a Sudoku book. And like, what are you gonna just do there? Just sit there and wait and wait and wait. You have no idea what time, you have no idea what order, you just don't know when you're gonna be called up and
What?
and and that could be quite agitated, particularly me. I'm the same as you. Like I can't sit in a meeting for more than an hour. I'm like,
Mm.
yeah, are we done? Like, is this it, guys? Kind of thing, you know.
But that's the
So
thing. Like the novelty wears off. Like, well, for me, it was all good. Like, wait for 2 hours, no worries, I'm on the show. Next day, yeah, wait for 5 hours, it's all good. No worries, I've made maths. And the next day and the next day, and the novelty sort of wears off. And then you're a couple of weeks into it, you're like, gotta wait around for a while. And like, do I? You know, for me, I really that was the beginning of my fucking downfall of just going nuts. But shit
but
happens.
I think the other bit of advice I'd give it, I think there were some people who potentially should not have been on the show, like in terms of who they are, their relationship experience, their mental health, their trauma, all that stuff, So to put people on the show that have issues, and I'm not going to name people because there's no point in doing it. I think people who've watched the show can form their own opinions on that. So if you're not feeling super strong and together in yourself, don't put yourself on a show like that. It'll
Mm,
destroy you.
mm,
And I had a lot of trauma therapy beginning of at the first half of last year. And so when I was then told you're on the show, I'd actually just finished, I just wrapped that up and I was feeling in a very good place. I was feeling very light and very positive and I was manifesting good things. And so I felt really like ready, ready. I didn't end like that. I sort of, yeah, but yeah, and if I had not been, if I was in like a different kind of headspace, let's say a year or 2 years before, then that might have been really tricky. You've got to be strong. You've got to be together. Self-belief, self-love, conviction. Here I am. Okay, this is going to be good. That's the way to get in there. And I think a lot of people didn't have that. And then it's like it's hard. Like fuck, now what?
Can I ask you, what's your biggest regret?
Oh, biggest regret. What is my biggest regret? I don't really have regrets as such. I mean, my regret is that Andy and my relationship didn't work out. That's my regret, to be honest. I thought we had something potentially really awesome going on there. The fact that it didn't work out, I think we are both responsible for that. And so my regret is my role that I played in that, and getting it to that point. So that's definitely a regret that I have. It just went real sour, quite quickly. And now today we don't really communicate at all, and that's okay. It's fine, But like I'm fine, it's all good now. But that was a regret that I had for sure. Like I really thought we'd get through it, and we should have. And we had the ingredients there. We had the foundation, which was really really awesome. But we kind of fucked it up.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
you could see on the show straight away that organic chemistry or not, and you guys are head and shoulders in front of everyone else for a
I think
long period.
yeah. It's that sort of, it's called NRE. NRE is new relationship energy. You know, like when I was younger, it used to be that feeling of when you're in love. But it's a thing. It's called new relationship energy. When you're just with people and you and it's just, you're on the same vibe, the same wavelength. It's all just happening. It's flowing. And it almost feels too much. It's like, oh my God, this is too good to be true, you know? And so my reaction sometimes in that situation is to go, oh, hang on a second. I need to put a bit of a handbrake and slow this down. But the thing about new relationship energy is you just go with it. Go with it. Go with the flow. Love it. Enjoy it. Embrace it and get on with it. And so that's kind of what I did, you know. And we really had that in spades, for sure. And it was obvious. I mean, everyone could see it, you know.
Mate, I want to sort of get to the tail end of this podcast. Must admit it's been fucking great so far, but we've got a couple more juicy ones to go. What life advice would you give someone? Sorry, I just got a pop up on my screen indicating we've got 10 minutes to go. What life advice would you give someone entering in their 20s or their young professional?
I think the life. What's the life advice?
Because you've lived a bloody roller coaster of a ride. What you've learned in life? What would you like to share for today's generation?
I think you want to take it. You play what's in front of you. Yeah. So it's one day at a time, and it's step by step. It's not getting ahead of yourself. Good days and bad days will happen. Bad days are part of a good life. That's fine. And navigate it that way. And while you're doing that, make sure that, you know, what you're doing and who you are, you align with who you are as a human being, and you're surrounded by people who know you and affirm you and validate you. So, you know, you go to places and hang out with people where you celebrated, not where you tolerated. Yeah. And if people are tolerating you, walk away. Just walk away. So it's all about being yourself. That's what it is. And being true to yourself and not letting other people and not letting cultural and social rules and norms stop you or detract you from being that person who you are. Yeah.
Find your tribe.
Game, and just live it one day at a time. Chunk it down, chunk it down. Today's the day. But that's all you've got. Yesterday's yesterday. It's gone. It's history. Tomorrow you might not make tomorrow. Actually, you might be dead. And that's true. And some people will be. And unfortunately, that's just the way life goes. You know, this is it. This is your moment. Live it, love it, and get on with it, you know? And if it's a bad day for you, that's fine as well, because tomorrow or the next day or next week will be better. And just go with that. Yeah, that's what I
love it. Find your tribe. All right. So first thing, we'll end it on a high note, something positive, something a bit of a game. And it's say the very first thing that popped to your mind, and I'm going to say a word. First thing that popped to your mind, I'm going to say Lucinda.
Goddess.
Corey and Jack.
She has the most successful couple of the season. Winners. Yeah. They're the winners, mate. They came out good. They're the ones.
You're right. I had a phone chat with Jack, I think last week or something, and you're kicking goals as far as their connection goes. All right, next thing.
Bad press and things going on about Jack, and it goes on and on and on and on. And like there's all that stuff, and he did stupid shit and said stupid shit and all that. But at the end of the day, I mean, she's moved up. They're the couple. They're together. They're strong. In terms of the outcome that this experiment is supposed to produce, you have to say they're the winners.
I want to have a chat with them on this, and just learn, their whole life, their whole backstory, particularly Jack's. I think there's more to Jack than who he is, but they've just got certain pockets of him on the show. But hopefully you can agree with this chat, and hopefully you can share some of that. First couple more things come to mind. Alessandra.
Uh, oh, Alessandra. Oh, Alessandra. I mean, she's gorgeous, like, she actually interviewed me. We had a good connection, good chemistry, I think. She's someone that I'd like to hang out with and get to know, but I never will probably. But
What
she's
about
nice. I like her. I like her. And she's quite, yeah, no, she's great. She's great. She's really good.
Digger vibes? All right, John
Good
Aiken,
vibe. John, oh, it was scary.
tell me about it.
Fucking scary. Everyone's scared of John. Yeah, John. Oh, but he's good. Good scary. He's there to do a job. He doesn't fuck around. But no, he's good. He's good, but scary.
I don't think he's good. I think he's an asshole. Obviously,
What
you
do
know
you
why. Um, next thing, OnlyFans.
No. No.
Oh, mate, maybe.
That's just a no from me at all. Like, no, no. Like, I have past members of MAFS that have gone on OnlyFans. I admit I have paid the 1 month subscription, the $9.95, to actually see what it is they've got to offer. Like, I'm a curious guy. Like, so what's going on here? And that's it. And then I make sure that I unsubscribe. I'm not paying every
Oh
single
man,
month. And
normalizing nudity and porn for fucking $10.
I know, I know.
I
I,
don't
I
know.
I think it's a last resort, and yeah, but I'm not here to judge people. I mean, people live their lives how they want to do it. But it's just for me, it's a no. That's all. It's for me, it's a no. Some
Uh,
people have said to me, "Are you going to go on OnlyFans?" I'm like, "You're right," as if I would. Like it's a market, isn't it? Older guys, younger girls on
There'd be a
OnlyFans, or
definite
whatever.
fetish.
You're right, you know?
You know, mature South African living in Sydney fetish OnlyFans page or some shit. There'd be someone out there fucking.
That's quite. That's I mean, I heard the other day, I heard Bronte from the season before saying she made $250,000 the first day she opened her OnlyFans page. It's like, wow.
It is
It's like,
impressive
okay.
pay packet. It is also selling your soul. It's also like
Well,
it's
for
being a
some people it is.
prostitute in a way.
I think that's a bit harsh. I mean, it's a bit judgmental and moralistic. I would just not do it for me. If
Mm.
people want to do it, I mean, I don't know. There was actually an episode on OnlyFans on Insight on SBS TV, and there was a lot of people who were on OnlyFans, and there was one girl on there whose most prolific and biggest paying customer ended up being her stepfather.
But
And she
that's
didn't
it. Like
and
like
she didn't
once
know.
you
And then it came
oh
out, and her mother was like, "You're out. You gone."
yeah. That's like that
That's
once you cross that line, like that's it. Like you've
yeah.
got that out there
There
for
was
the
another couple. There was
you
another
know.
couple on there, and the interviewer said, "Oh, you have something really unique and different, don't you, on OnlyFans?" And yeah, she had two vaginas. Yeah, 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 yeah. So she was an OnlyFans with two vaginas. So, you got something like that going, and you're a good-looking couple and all that. I mean, but also
Yeah.
there's couples who've been on OnlyFans who you've got to have film content all the time, every day. And so the spark and the magic and the chemistry in their relationship just started to fade. It just
Yeah.
became a chore, became something they had to do. You know what I'm saying? And so they kind of lost respect and love and all the feelings for each other. So, and I can see that happening as well. Tough thing
Yeah.
to do, man. Tough thing to do.
Well,
But
Richard,
no, it's a no. It's no. Would you go to any fans? No, I guess not.
oh, I guess money talks, but no, I don't think so. Um, I don't think I could do it personally. I think once that across that line, like that's it. Because despite what the show says, when I have kids, I want them to be, not being a teenager going, Dad, this is how you're making money, and it sort of sets a precedent. And I don't want to roll that on as a role model, from niece and nephew at the moment. So I can't personally do it. So for that
No.
reason, no. But that's me. That's my interpretation. Mate, we
Okay.
are running out the clock. I just want to
Okay.
say a big, massive thank you for opening
My
up and
pleasure.
sharing. We've unpacked some good stuff. And Thank you for your openness and your time and sharing some of your story and a lot of this content. And hopefully some of the listeners, I learn a few things a bit. Every time I talk to you, I always pick up these little one things here and there. So hopefully some people can actually tap into that and, get that acknowledgement or experience or understanding about MAFS, but also who you are, Richard, and some of your story.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, mate.
You made it to the end of the podcast. All right. You know the drill. Give us a like, subscribe, or leave some juicy comments. And thank you so much for listening to Get Lost with the Travel Guide, where we talk all things travel, tourism, and adventure. See you next time.